There comes a moment in every woman's life when the pain no longer paralyzes her, it fuels her. When the tears that once blurred her vision begin to cleanse her soul. When she realizes she's not falling apart, she's falling into place. That moment, sister, is your awakening. And it begins not with noise, but with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't scream, "I'm broken," but declares, "I'm rising." You see, it's not weakness to feel pain after being left without closure. It's not weakness to lie awake wondering what went wrong. It's human. But what separates the woman who stays stuck from the woman who transforms is what she does with that pain. Most reach for the phone. Most beg, plead, cry through messages, hoping their words will ignite something in him. But what if I told you the most powerful words are the ones you never send? When you stop chasing, you stop leaking power. That emotional silence you fear so much, it is not your enemy, it is your weapon. And let me be very clear. Silence isn't about playing games. It's about reclaiming your energy, your worth, your identity. Because every time you explain yourself to someone who doesn't value you, you shrink a little more. But every time you choose to stay silent in your strength, you expand. Let's talk about value. A woman who constantly gives, answers every text, checks his stories, responds within seconds. She's easy to access. And what's easy to access becomes easy to take for granted. Emotional silence isn't passive. It's a conscious act of setting a new standard. You don't get to have access to me just because you used to. Silence says, I don't need closure, I am the closure. I know you remember the feeling. The feeling of being replaced like a discarded object, as if all the love you poured into him evaporated overnight. But listen, the way someone exits your life says everything about them and nothing about your worth. He didn't leave because you weren't enough. He left because he wasn't capable of receiving everything you were. And one day, he will feel that. Not through your words, but through your absence. Let me paint you a picture. You're used to walking into a room, his name swirling in your mind. You used to check your phone 100 times a day, hoping he'd reach out. You used to wake up heavy with thoughts of, what could I have done better? Now imagine waking up lighter, not because the pain vanished overnight, but because you've stopped outsourcing your worth to someone else's recognition. That's what emotional silence begins to create, a space where healing can finally happen. Because while you're silent, sister, you're not inactive. You're evolving. You're in the gym turning pain into strength. You're journaling, rewriting your narrative. You're learning to eat for your body, speak kindly to your soul, and nurture your spirit. Your silence isn't a void, it's a rebirth in motion. And yes, he will notice when the texts stop, when your profile no longer reflects sadness or longing, when your name stops appearing under his stories. That contrast will begin to echo in his mind. Where did she go? Did she move on? Is there someone else? And maybe, just maybe, he'll begin to realize what he lost. Not because you reminded him, but because your silence screamed louder than any words ever could. Have you ever noticed that the most unforgettable people aren't the ones who begged to stay? They're the ones who vanished with grace, leaving a silence so profound it haunted the room. That's the kind of silence we're talking about. One that doesn't just hurt him, it heals you. Let me tell you something that no one tells you. Closure isn't found in his apology. It's found in your decision to stop waiting for it. You don't need him to explain why he left. What you need is to decide why you're not waiting at the door anymore. Now that you've begun to awaken, now that you've embraced silence not as emptiness but as empowerment, it's time to go deeper. The question now is not whether you can survive without him, it's whether you can thrive without needing him. The power of intelligent detachment is not about pushing him away with bitterness. It's about pulling yourself back with grace. Because true strength isn't screaming, I'm over you. It's whispering, I'm finally choosing me. Let's get real. Attachment doesn't vanish overnight. It lingers. It whispers. It sneaks in during quiet moments and tries to convince you to go back. Just one more message, just one more chance. That's not love, that's addiction. That's your nervous system clinging to familiarity, not your soul asking for connection. Detachment is how you heal the addiction, and it's uncomfortable because you're not just letting go of a person, you're letting go of a pattern. Remember, silence is not revenge, it's clarity. And detachment is not punishment, it's peace. You're not withdrawing to hurt him. You're pulling back to hear yourself, to listen to that small voice inside that says, I want more, I deserve more. When you detach, you disrupt the emotional supply he once relied on. He was used to your reassurance, your availability, your emotional labor. But now, that channel is cut. And do you know what happens when someone is used to being fed and the plate is removed? Hunger kicks in. That's not manipulation. That's the psychology of value. We don't chase what we're handed. We chase what we fear we may never hold again. But here's the key difference. You're not detaching to make him miss you. You're detaching to finally meet yourself. Because there is a version of you beyond the heartbreak, beyond the longing, beyond the fear of being alone. And the only way to meet her is to walk away from everything that isn't meant for her. The biggest trap women fall into after a breakup is the myth of staying friends. It sounds mature. It sounds evolved. But more often than not, it's a disguise for staying emotionally available. If you're still reacting, still checking his stories, still replying to, "Hey, how are you?" texts, then you haven't detached. You've just softened the chains. True detachment doesn't mean hatred. It means indifference, not cold, not cruel, but calm. You no longer need to prove your worth to someone who couldn't see it. That's real power. Because when a woman no longer needs closure, no longer needs to be chosen, no longer defines herself by who stayed or left, she becomes unforgettable. Let's talk energy. When you pull back emotionally, you create contrast. If he always had your attention and now he doesn't, his brain doesn't register it as you being mean. It registers it as loss. And humans are hardwired to fix what we've lost, especially when that loss was once a source of comfort. Your silence, your distance, your rebirth, it creates tension. It creates the unknown. And the unknown is magnetizing. Here's the secret. The less you try to be seen, the more visible you become. When you were always there, always available, you were part of the background. Now that you've gone quiet, you've become the question. And questions demand answers. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to update him on your progress. The energy speaks for itself. The glow, the posture, the refusal to engage in emotional scraps. That is your announcement. That is your arrival. When he reaches out, if he does, let it be because he feels the loss of a woman he never truly understood. Not because you threw reminders in his face. Let me tell you something many don't say out loud. It's okay to still love him while choosing to walk away. Love isn't always meant to be expressed. Sometimes the highest expression of love is release. Love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it means setting boundaries and letting go. You don't have to stop feeling to start healing. You just have to stop bleeding in places that never deserved your wounds. And here's the twist. When you detach and focus fully on yourself, something miraculous happens. Your attraction becomes effortless. You're no longer radiating the frequency of need. You're radiating the frequency of wholeness, and wholeness is magnetic. This is what reverse psychology without manipulation looks like. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about becoming so deeply rooted in your worth that you are, in fact, hard to get, not because you're withholding, but because not everyone deserves access to your peace. Let's go deeper. Men, like all humans, are drawn to what shifts their emotional baseline. If you were once emotional, reactive, and now you're composed, confident, distant, it creates imbalance. And imbalance leads to curiosity. Curiosity leads to attention. Attention leads to pursuit. But by the time he begins to pursue, you won't be the same woman. That's the part most men don't expect. They believe you're frozen in time, waiting for them to return. But you've evolved. You've stopped asking, "Does he miss me?" and started asking, "Do I even want the same things I used to?" The best part? When you detach and grow, the question shifts from, "Will he come back?" to "Do I even care if he does?" Because emotional detachment isn't the death of love, it's the rebirth of self-love. It's a bold, quiet declaration that says, "I no longer place my worth in your hands." And when you do that, the dynamic shifts. He's no longer the one who gets to choose. You do. You always did. You just forgot for a while. So here's your new mantra. I don't chase, I attract. I don't beg, I embody. I don't wait, I grow. Let your silence be your loudest transformation. Let your distance be the spark that reignites your inner flame. Let your emotional absence become a mirror that reflects what he lost. But more importantly, what you found yourself. Now that you've tasted detachment, now that your silence has spoken louder than your pleading ever did, it's time to take one final leap. You're no longer just surviving the loss. You're transforming because of it. You're not waiting for a return. You're not secretly hoping to be chased. You are rising. Not for him, for you. This is the part of the journey most people don't reach. They stop when it gets too lonely, when the silence becomes deafening, when the absence tempts them to break no contact just this once. But not you. You've come too far. You've learned the truth. What you tolerate teaches people how to treat you. And now you tolerate nothing that diminishes your worth. Let's talk about emotional scarcity. It's not a trick. It's not manipulation. It's reality. What is always available becomes background noise. What is rare becomes sacred. This applies to your time, your energy, your love. You once gave it freely. You once poured from an empty cup, and now you're learning that emotional generosity must come with boundaries. Because here's the raw truth. You are not here to be easy to access. You are not here to be someone's emotional sponge, constantly soaking up their chaos while draining your own peace. You are here to be a woman of depth, of value, of intentional presence. The kind of woman who no longer begs to be chosen, because she chooses herself every day. And what happens when you become scarce, not out of spite, but out of self-respect? You become magnetic, not in the superficial, curated social media kind of way. No. You become magnetic in your energy, your movement, your essence. You walk into a room differently. You no longer shrink to fit someone else's comfort. You take up space. You breathe deeper. You speak slower. You make eye contact without flinching. You've stopped performing for love. You've stopped marketing your worth. You're no longer the open book anyone can read. You are the novel people wish they hadn't judged by the cover. Let me remind you of something important. If he comes back, it's because your silence created space. But if you haven't evolved during that silence, nothing will change. That's why growth is not optional. It's essential. While he's gone, while you're rebuilding, you're not just becoming someone he regrets losing. You're becoming someone you would never abandon again. Too many women confuse stillness with weakness. They think silence is passivity. But silence, when chosen deliberately, is strength in its most graceful form. You're not ignoring him. You're prioritizing you. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not distant. You're discerning. You've finally remembered that your love is a privilege, not a guarantee. Let's make one thing absolutely clear. Your goal is not to be chased. Your goal is to be so at peace with yourself that even if he doesn't come back, you don't shrink. Even if he begs to return, you don't flinch. Because you're not looking for validation anymore. You've already validated yourself. He might come back. Many do. Often with apologies, often with confusion. They say things like, "I've changed. I miss you. I didn't know what I had." But you, sister, are no longer the woman who waits for apologies. You're the woman who builds empires in the ruins. You don't sit by the phone. You sit at the throne of your self-respect. This is your moment of personal rebirth. And rebirth is not pretty. It's not a cute Instagram post. It's messy. It's painful. It's nights of doubt, days of discipline, moments of relapse followed by bursts of power. Rebirth doesn't mean you're over it. It means you're choosing something bigger than the wound, your wholeness. Think of it this way. You were once a house built for two, but one person walked out and left the lights on. Now you're tearing it down, not to forget him, but to rebuild a mansion designed solely for you. One where the foundation isn't someone else's attention, but your own alignment. The woman you're becoming, the one who no longer texts, doesn't beg, doesn't prove, isn't a version you pretend to be. She's the real you. She was buried under codependency, fear, and emotional overinvestment. But she's back now. She's not bitter. She's better. Not because he left, but because you returned. So, when the silence gets heavy, when you doubt yourself, when the memories come rushing back, ask this: am I honoring my past or building my future? Because every text you don't send, every time you choose self-care over self-sacrifice, you are building something extraordinary, unshakable self-respect. And that, sister, is the foundation of real love. The kind that doesn't ask you to beg, shrink, or suffer. The kind that doesn't cost your peace. The kind that finds you whole, not desperate. And do you know who you attract from that place of wholeness? People who are whole too. People who don't want to complete you, but celebrate you. If he comes back and you decide to let him in, it won't be from a place of need. It will be from a place of choice. Because now, you understand something vital. Love is not about winning someone back. Love is about never losing yourself again. So here's what I want you to remember. You're not hard to love. You just loved people who didn't know how to receive it. Your silence is not emptiness. It's wisdom in action. Your detachment is not cruelty. It's sacred protection. Your transformation is not for his regret. It's for your rebirth. You've gone from being someone who waited for text to someone who rewrites her story. From someone who explained her worth to someone who embodies it. From someone who asked, "Why doesn't he love me?" to someone who says, "Why would I ever beg for what I already am?" And that's the power you've reclaimed. So if today you miss him, that's okay. But miss him while moving forward. Feel the sadness, but keep rising. Look back only to see how far you've come. Because the woman who begged is gone. And in her place now stands a woman who no longer waits to be chosen. She chooses herself. You've become the woman who can't be replaced. Not because you're flawless, but because you're finally whole. And sister, when a whole woman walks away, no man forgets her.